Radio is fostering women-centered discourse.
Good morning, Dominica. Good morning, the rest of the world.
Offering women a platform to be candid.
All of your life, you've been planning for a pandemic.
Share ideas and information relevant to our wholesome development.
My main concern was always for the people.
Join Jael Joseph and Trudy Christian on Woman2Woman every Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we discuss live and in living color on Digicel Channel 57, Facebook, and of course, the champion station, Vibes Radio. Radio is fostering women-centered discourse.
Good morning, Dominica. Good morning, the rest of the world.
Offering women a platform to be candid.
All of your life, you've been planning for a pandemic.
Share ideas and information relevant to our wholesome development.
My main concern was always for the people.
Join Jael Joseph and Trudy Christian on Woman2Woman every Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we discuss live and in living color on Digicel Channel 57, Facebook, and of course, the champion station, Vibes Radio.
Morning.
Good morning. What's up?
Good morning. How are you, Trudy?
I'm good. It's Tuesday and it's September. So it's a good day. Start of a new month. And I mean, new month, new beginnings. So
yes. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. September, remember? I don't know what's September.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I think of September lately, like the last couple of years, I always think of Maria. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think that's normal for all of us Dominicans. Yeah.
Yeah. So good morning to everyone who's tuned in. Not to scare you, no intention to scare you guys, but bad memories. September.
Yes.
Wish everyone is having an awesome day. Those of you who are tuned in on the radio, on the internet, on the TV, on TuneIn.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, good morning, good morning, especially as usual to our social media listeners, our faithful Facebook followers, and the members of the Early Bird crew. We see you, Jael. We were just a few minutes, behind schedule this morning, and somebody messaged me and he was like, where are you guys? So they're even earlier than us right now. So good morning to you, Early Bird crew. Rosalind, we see you. Shola, as usual. Lorraine, Colleen, good morning to you. Good to have you all on with us. As usual, bright and early.
You know, Trudy, we forgot to talk about Black Panther and
yes,
and like we never even mentioned it. And I mean, I think probably I was like avoiding it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a conversation I avoided like practically from the time we learned of his passing. That's Chadwick Boseman. From the time we learned of his passing, it's like I didn't even know how to tell my kid. I was like, oh my God, like Black Panther. Like, how do you tell him that Black Panther is dead? That is definitely one of the hardest deaths, in terms of celebrities passing in a very long time. I mean, it was very unexpected. I mean, granted, Kobe, we had the same vibe, the same feeling. Kobe passed, but with him, with Black Panther, it was kind of like Black Panther. You can't help but call him Black Panther. Boseman, it was kind of like. So I mean, Kobe was unexpected, but it was just like how do you tell your kid that his superhero is dead?
That's life though. So it's like, I mean, it's difficult, but like children at one point or the other, like have to come to some sort of realization that death is literally a part of life. Like none of us escaping it though. So I mean, I know he was an actor, and celebrities, it's particularly difficult because we look at them and like we feel like we know.
Idolize them all.
Yes, we know these people, but at the end of the day, they're human beings, and it's the tragic part for me, or not tragic, but the interesting part for me is how long he was battling his illness, and he kept up, with his roles in his movies, and he put on this strong outlook, and nobody knew. Like for 4 years, battling with colon cancer, stage 3, and all of us fans had no clue.
Yeah, and the thing is that he was right in front of all of us. It's like he was actively, he shot Black Panther 6.
Right.
And like, what's his name? Clark Peterson, I think is his name. That Black actor, I think that's his name. Older gentleman. I was looking at a video of him, and he was talking about, shooting a movie with Chadwick in Thailand, and he said he had like an Asian therapist. His girlfriend was always there holding his hands. Like there was and he was saying to his wife that this guy made Black Panther go to his head. Everybody's fawning over him, and he was down in tears because he felt so bad that he said these things, and not realizing that the guy was actually sick while everyone was quote unquote fawning over him,
Right.
So it's amazing, like I feel like there's so much backlash, especially like, one of the most popular media outlets, Shade Room, that everybody who's on Instagram probably follows Shade Room. If you're not on Instagram and you're not following Shade Room, I unfollowed them. And I unfollowed them after, and I might follow them again, but right now I'm unfollowing them because they had so much to say when he started losing weight. And they among other people who were talking about it. And people were so remorseful and so regretful about what they said when they noticed he was losing weight, the kinds of comments that they were making. And people were apologizing, like saying how sorry they were that they were saying all these things. And it just makes you realize like you don't know people's history and people's story. And because you see somebody doing stuff or acting a certain way or looking a certain way, you cannot just come to a conclusion and decide for your own what that person's going through. And that happened even on the weekend. I saw one of our past guests made like a long comment, on Facebook speaking about her health, and in as much as I was upset, Trudy, I was pissed off, that she had to go to Facebook because somebody saw her in Roseau and commented on how she was getting fat and like you don't know what people are going through, and you have to be so it's disgusting that as West Indian, as Caribbean people, that we feel we need to be so judgmental and so brutally honest with people without considering everything that you're not living these people's lives. Like, right. Who are you to judge people and say and cast aspersions or make judgments,
Right. So it's a good intro to what we'll be talking about today. So Today we actually have a guest in the house, and we're going to be discussing one of these invisible somewhat health issues that people may be going through, and it's Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome Awareness Month. September is the designated month for that. So Woman2Woman, of course, always ready to speak about issues that affect women. We have Dr. Ruby Blanc in the house this morning, who will be talking to us about PCOS. So Jael, just following straight in line with what you were just saying.
That was not even like planning. It was just my thought process was just going. And I'm like, yo, like, we need to be, I know people are saying preach and people are getting all excited and hyped up about the conversation. But we honestly need to think, we need to mind our business. That's what we need. You know, it's not your business. We need to stay out of certain things. And when people are going through things, instead of judging them and saying, you're getting fat or you're getting skinny or what happened now? What happened to your face? You know, like, mind your business. Like, it's better to ask someone, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? And leave them to tell you instead of you just deciding, because that particular former guest is going through a very difficult time. And it was obvious in her post that she is going through a very difficult time. And to be quite honest, I didn't feel like she needed to tell anybody on social media what she was going through. In as much as it raises awareness about PCOS, and the different things that us women go through, in secret, sometimes in private, sometimes it's public, depending on your profile, of course. But she felt she was not raising awareness because she wanted to talk about it. She was raising awareness because somebody made her feel like shit in the middle of Roseau. And I feel like we need to stop this nonsense. Like, we just need to stop it. Like, we're hurting people, we're harming people, and we don't feel better about ourselves when we do it. So stop it. Right. And that's just one thing led to another.
Let's take a break. We have so let's take a break so we could come back with, I know a lot of people are logging on to get some information about this condition that we're going to be speaking about. So make sure you share the live. If you haven't shared the live yet, make sure you share the live. We'll be taking a quick break and we'll be coming back. And you need to make sure, if you have friends that you feel need to join in on this discussion, tag them, share the live, and let us just get ready for Dr. Blanc coming up after the break.
Yes. We're coming back with more. Taking like literally a minute, and we're coming back. All right, guys.
Do you have a question for us on Woman2Woman? Send in your questions on 767-245-0514 or email us at w2w.vibesradio@gmail.com. Tune in Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to the Champion Station with Jael Joseph and Trudy Christian, only on Vibes Radio. Huggies Active Sec disposable diapers provides the best absorption results. Its Velcro Dura technology provides a long-lasting fit for up to 12 hours of absorption and are available in sizes small to XXL at an affordable price. Huggies Active Sec, aiding your baby to explore the world. Available at all supermarkets and shops island-wide and distributed by Springfield Trading Limited.
It's always a great deal at LA Jubilee Hardware Store. A wide variety of wood and metal curtain rods at amazing prices. So many patterns for your home and business decor needs. We have roofing, concrete, and wood screws of all lengths, nails by pound and bulk, hand and power tools, paint and paint accessories, all types of silicones, door locks, and hinges, shop or decorative mirrors and housewares, cutlasses and garden tools, ladders, wheelbarrows, kitchenware, pots and pans, and kitchen appliances, durable ironing boards, clothes dryers, toilets, face basins, kitchen sinks, bathroom faucets, and so much more hardware items. At LA Jubilee Hardware Store, you get special discounts when you spend over $29. What are you waiting for? Come home to quality at LA Jubilee Hardware.
Right now it's woman time. Hey, it's your girl Tasha P, and you're listening to Woman2Woman.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much. Those of you who have shared the live, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Just want to make sure my background is okay before I open up the screen. You never know. Let me tell you the kinds of things that I have on my screen there. You'd be surprised. But we have a lovely guest on with us this morning. She was on back in May. When we spoke about doing the conversation on COVID-19, and she was an amazing guest. She was actually one of the first guests. And we're happy to have her back in a different capacity, right, Trudy?
Yes. So Dr. Ruby Blanc is an OBGYN, my personal gynecologist, She is also the hospital medical director. And she, of course, is well poised to speak to us about women's health issues. And this morning we're talking PCOS. So good morning, Dr. Blanc. Good to have you on.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. And good morning to everybody who's joined us today. This is a very important topic that we're going to discuss. As Trudy pointed out, it probably doesn't get necessarily the attention that it deserves because it can be very disruptive. It can cause a lot of stress in persons who have the condition. And so I'm very happy that we're going to spend some time discussing PCOS today.
Right, and I'm so happy you took the time off. I know you're a very busy lady, but I felt there was nobody better to kind of help us to start this awareness about PCOS in the month of September, which is PCOS Awareness Month. So I'm happy to have you on. Yeah,
thank you.
I wanted to start off.
Before I met you, I knew nothing about PCOS. I'm not even. And I remember the first time you said PCOS, because I have trigger fingers and I'm very quick at Googling. I was like, what is PCOS? But like a lot of folks out there, and who feels it does not necessarily. Who feels it knows it. Who doesn't feel it doesn't really know about it. And sometimes we just stay in the dark. What is PCOS?
Okay, so even the medical community has a little bit of difficulty in terms of a formal definition. It is actually described more along what it causes. In very simple layman's terms, PCOS, polycystic ovaries, about 80% of persons with it have ovaries that there are a number of tiny cysts. They're not the cysts that you would do surgery for, well under 1 centimeter. And they usually are peripheral cysts, meaning they cover the outer aspect of the ovaries. And I'm sure everybody would know ovaries are our female organs where our eggs are produced. And because of various issues with that ovary, because of the cyst, and we'll go into some of that detail in a little while, the ovaries do not function as they are supposed to. So that's kind of it in a nutshell in terms of a definition. But as I said, there are a few critical clinical features that kind of help you to make the diagnosis of PCOS. The first thing is that patients with PCOS do not ovulate, or they do not ovulate regularly. And of course, that has a whole host of other implications. Again, we'll talk about that as we go along. The other important part is that many patients with PCOS also have an excessive amount of male hormones. You would hear terms such as testosterone, androgens. You actually have a whole host of different male hormones, although testosterone is the most well-known or common one. And persons with PCOS, they have an excess of testosterone or male hormones. And we see that in a number of different ways, or it is manifested differently. We will see things like excessive hair growth on the face, on the chest, on the back. We will also see those patients having an increased chance of developing acne. There is also, I should point out, initially we said that 80% of patients with PCOS will have those small cysts. about 20%, when you look at the ovaries on an ultrasound, will have no cysts whatsoever. So you do not necessarily need cysts on your ovaries to have a diagnosis of PCOS. Okay, I just want to put that out there because there are some persons who will say, but my ultrasound is normal, and yet still the doctor told me that I have PCOS. So those are the two key parts, the fact that the patients do not ovulate regularly and the fact that there is an excessive amount of male hormones. Now, obviously, to make the diagnosis, you should also rule out other causes of things that would prevent ovulation, other causes of excessive male hormones. And once those are ruled out, then essentially you can make your diagnosis.
Right. So, Dr. Blanc, you spoke about the excessive male hormones and of course, the hair growth that is a result. I remember my initial Google search of PCOS way back in the day when a doctor had suggested that maybe that's what I have. I was maybe like 18 or 19. And the first thing I saw was like a picture of a bearded, like bearded ladies, a lot of mustache. And that scared me instantly. So it's like I was already, turned off because I'm like, all that beard. So as it relates to the excess male hormone and some of the outcomes, do you see that particular symptom in everybody, or is it, off and on?
Okay. All right, so the most common way patients with PCOS will present, what they usually come to the office for example, is concerns about their periods. Very commonly, the periods are irregular, that they're not coming, or they come very sporadically. But once you start to take the history, you find a significant number of persons with PCOS do have signs of, what we refer to as hyperandrogenism, which is the excessive male hormones. And as we said, it is manifested in a number of different ways. The hair growth is obviously the most, I guess, troubling and troublesome. But we see acne as well, oily skin. Some people actually have hair loss, alopecia, and hair thinning. Again, that is as a result of the excessive hair growth. So sometimes the hair grows in all of the wrong places. It's under your chin, it's under your, on your chest, but it's dropping from your head. So, and you can imagine how distressing that can be, for women. I mean, our hair is usually a very important part of, our physical appearance, and how we see ourselves. So that can be really a bit of an issue.
I'm concerned. How did that even come about? Like, you would expect your ovaries to work normally. How do you decide that's when they're gonna grow a little cyst? And why is it like I'm so like confused about this? It's like,
okay, that's an excellent question. Yes,
you're talking about, all I'm thinking about is friends in my past who I remember having these symptoms that you're talking about. And I'm like pinpointing, probably that's what she had, or probably that's what she had, It's like, but nobody knew about it, and there was no conversation about it. So it's like, why all of a sudden this is popping up?
Right. Actually, it's really it's not a new condition. It's just that it's becoming more talked about. It's becoming more known. Even in the medical community, if you speak to some of the older doctors, they'll tell you that wasn't something that they really discussed, came across, or maybe even thought about, as regularly as we do now. I think right now the awareness is such that we look for PCOS when patients come, with certain complaints. But let's do a little bit of a biology lesson so that we can have a better understanding of, what is going on inside of us, when the doctor says you have PCOS. So the kind of heart and soul of this condition seems to be what we refer to as insulin resistance. And everybody will know insulin is a hormone. It's made by the pancreas, which is one of the organs in the tummy area. And insulin helps us to control our blood sugar. So it really causes sugar or glucose to move from our blood into our cells. And that's how it is supposed to be. So the cells get the glucose, it's broken down, and it's used to provide energy. The problem is, and again, we're not quite sure why. We think there's some kind of genetic predisposition, but science has not yet identified a particular gene to say that this is the gene causing the problem. But we do know that PCOS, for example, can run in families. So long and short is the body is insulin resistant. Now, what that means, the body kind of says that it gets the message that I do not have enough insulin. But the problem really is that it's not really responding to insulin. But in an attempt to get more of the effect of the insulin, what it does is to make more. So as you are insulin resistant, the response to that is to make more insulin. Now, that in itself, the high levels of insulin actually cause the ovaries to produce more testosterone. And yes, our ovaries do produce testosterone, which is the male hormone. The testosterone then goes on to prevent or to inhibit normal ovulation. Okay, so that is kind of how we end up with the ovulation issues. Now, in addition, insulin resistance leads to the dreaded weight gain. As we develop more fat, we increase our resistance to insulin. So you see a vicious cycle is set up. And I mean, I'm sure a number of persons can identify with that. As long as they put on weight, then the periods just go from scanty to totally no shoes. So that's our biology lesson for today. So I hope it kind of explains, I try to make it as simple as possible, why we end up with what we have. And everything essentially in terms of the symptoms kind of stem from that. You can understand the anovulation where the ovaries, as I said, are inhibited by the excessive testosterone, but that all arises from the insulin resistance. Okay?
That was excellent. That was an excellent explanation. I visualized the entire thing.
Yeah. I really appreciate the explanation. I think even if anybody has they don't want to talk about biology, I think that explanation put it in focus for the non-biology lovers.
Yeah.
I think people would not love biology, but anyway, that's
yes. We need to understand why what is happening.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I don't think we don't like it. I don't think some of us don't like it. I think we just don't understand, so we just stay away.
Yes.
But that explanation was excellent. I got it.
Right.
Great.
So my next question, because this is a point of I would say maybe disagreement among a lot of ladies. Not disagreement, but a lot of ladies with PCOS will speak about symptoms. And not everybody would, of course, experience the same symptoms. And then there might be some disagreement as to, okay, that is really a symptom. Is that a symptom? Is that PCOS is causing that, or is something else? So I wanted you to let us know what are some of the symptoms, maybe the classic ones. You already spoke about some, but some other things that people can maybe observe and link to that PCOS diagnosis.
Okay, so first thing is usually symptoms begin to show typically, again, remember, we are all unique and special, so everybody will not have the same story, but you are right, Trudy, in terms of their kind of group, which pretty much point to the disease process. So we usually begin to see the symptoms more commonly as in late teens to early 20s. So a lot of persons will tell you that their period started okay, and after a few years, they recognize that it started getting irregular. Probably the most important symptom that is required to make the diagnosis is the menstrual history, the history of irregular periods, or the history of no periods at all. So the medical terms oligomenorrhea, which would be essentially infrequent periods, or amenorrhea, which would be no periods at all. Interestingly, we have a small subset of patients who have periods that are too frequent. So usually a period shouldn't come more frequently than every 21 days. So cycles are typically between 21 days to 35 days. Any duration in terms from the start of one period to the start of another period of 21 to 35 days, that's essentially considered normal. We have people who have periods every 2 weeks. And when we do the investigations, we find out they have all of the criteria for PCOS. But that is an extremely small group. The more typical finding is either very regular periods or no periods at all. So as I said, that is the most critical part of the history. The other thing that usually shows up, again, we alluded to that before, would be the signs of the excessive male hormones. Hirsutism, which is excessive hair growth, as we said, on the face, on the chin, on the neck, on the back, etc. Weight gain, and that would speak to the insulin resistance. We spoke about the hair loss and the hair thinning, which is again a result of testosterone, oily skin and acne. And of course, people present with difficulty getting pregnant. And when we take the history, we find out it's not really difficulty getting pregnant so much as the periods are problematic. So usually that is what shows up again in the history. Now, almost on the side, we do have some patients, again, if you sit and you take a proper history, that you find that they are depressed and anxious a number of times. So we will not consider it like a primary symptom, but it's usually a secondary symptom arising from the, of course, the concerns and the anxiety of the other primary symptoms that they're presenting with. So, you are married or you feel you're getting on in age, you want to have a baby, it's not happening, there must be something wrong because the periods are not coming as they're supposed to. And so they come in, of course, depressed and anxious, very concerned. So those are the common and more typical symptoms. I really want to point out or discuss the issue of pain, pelvic pain, because too many times we see patients coming in, Dr. Blanc, my cysts are hurting me. And I look at them a little strangely because the cysts from polycystic ovaries do not hurt. They do not cause pain. And usually if you're having pain, another cause needs to be determined. Many times there's some other type of pathology. Sometimes some of those patients have fibroids. Sometimes some of those patients have endometriosis, which is something we need to talk about one of those days. That is another important, gynae condition that really, really can make persons' lives miserable. But endometriosis, a lot of times, is actually the cause of the pain that they report, and it's really not PCOS. So I would really want to encourage women who, even if you've had a diagnosis of PCOS, and you have especially chronic pain, not just pain here and there, but you have this ongoing pain or this recurrent pain that, you probably need a little a little closer look needs to be taken to determine. I've actually had 1 or 2 patients who've come in, again with pain, yes, with a diagnosis of PCOS. And when we do the ultrasound, they have a big ugly cyst, sometime an endometrioma or some other type of abnormal cyst that needs to be taken off. It had nothing to do with PCOS.
Right. I really wanted to ask about the possibility of other cysts, because I've had people say to me, for instance, of course, because I started a PCOS support group. So when I say I have, it's people in the support group that I'm referring to. Mm-hmm. But they would say, like, a cyst of, I feel a cyst bursting, or like a cyst of I had to rush to the hospital and I had a ruptured cyst. What is there is there a cystic ovary pattern that is totally unrelated to?
Yeah, there are. The first thing people have to understand is that cysts in the ovaries are normal. The eggs that we put out every month as part of ovulation are formed within a cyst. So every ovarian cyst, actually the majority of ovarian cysts are actually normal. That is the first thing. Cysts are not necessarily bad, okay? So we need to make that very clear. You can actually have a normal cyst that, again, for various reasons, grows bigger than it is supposed to, because knowing what we know about our menstrual cycle, we have what we call our follicular cyst. The eggs are formed in that. They release. You have the remnant called the corpus luteum that, if you were to get pregnant, will support the pregnancy in the early phases before the placenta is developed, and then it disappears and the process starts again for the next month. So we have normal cysts. Sometimes normal cysts persist longer than they're supposed to, and sometimes they grow larger than they're supposed to. Of course, the ovaries are an extremely active organ. There are a number of processes going on in the ovaries, one of the major sites for hormone production. And so we can have other abnormal cysts, being formed. Sometimes even ovarian cancer can show up like a cystic type lesion, but that's, again, just on the side. So you could have or endometriosis. Must mention that is another common cause of a complicated cyst. The cysts, as we said, for PCOS are extremely small. We're talking about cysts that are 2 and 3 millimeters in size. So even if one were to rupture, it's really not going to cause you any significant extended pain. So when we talk about a ruptured cyst that we can see signs of, for example, on an ultrasound in terms of a bit of fluid collection in the pelvis, we're talking about a bigger cyst, a 3 or 4 or 5 centimeter, type of cyst. And as I said, I mean, I hope nobody takes it the wrong way, but sometimes the issue of pain and PCOS, they use the PCOS almost as a cop-out, that you go and you have PCOS, so automatically that's the cause of your pain. And it distresses me as a gynecologist, because I think, truthful information, I think, is one of the most important jobs of a physician,
Dr. Blanc, the question I'm curious. I've been questions, sending me questions directly to my WhatsApp, as well as we have a few questions, and I think I can probably merge some of them. So I'm going to try my best so we can kill two birds with one stone. Somebody's asking, they understand the part in about not being able to get pregnant, but they don't understand about losing constantly having miscarriages. So what is causing the constant miscarriage? And for Dinah on my page is asking, can the inability to get pregnant be rectified? So I think we can probably merge the two together and see what we can.
And take us into the fertility discussion, which is part of this.
Okay, so let's deal with miscarriages. Again, that is something that we must approach very carefully, because the more common impact on fertility from PCOS is really just an inability to get pregnant, meaning that you're not ovulating, so obviously you would not be able to get pregnant naturally if you're not ovulating. You need an egg to be put out, to be fertilized by the sperm for pregnancy to occur naturally. Having said that, you do have certain hormones need to do certain things to sustain a pregnancy. And again, because you have all of those irregularities in terms of the hormone cycles and control, sometimes what needs to be in place, what needs to be functioning to support a pregnancy, doesn't do what it is supposed to do. And then you can end up with a miscarriage. Having said that, I would not, if a patient comes to me with recurrent miscarriages, even if they seem to have PCOS, assume that PCOS was the cause, because there are a number of other more common causes of miscarriages. And again, that's a discussion for a whole other program. We could spend the program just talking about miscarriages. So anybody with at least 2 back-to-back spontaneous losses, miscarriages, they should be investigated. And then there's a very well outlined series of initial tests that you should do to try to determine what is the underlying cause. Okay, because sometimes you could be blaming it on PCOS when it is something else that is totally treatable. And because the person is not properly investigated, then the underlying cause is never found, and they continue to have the heartbreak of recurrent miscarriages. Okay, so I just want us to know that the most common cause of a miscarriage is not necessarily PCOS. There are other causes, and so anybody with recurrent miscarriages must be investigated thoroughly and properly. Okay. Okay, so all right. So the issue of infertility, we said very clearly that PCOS is associated with infertility. Now, something that I should have said from the beginning, we said that 20% of patients will not have cysts, even if they meet the other criteria for PCOS. There's also the flip side. You can have polycystic ovaries and not have polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that is a very, very important point for people to know. It is not because you see numerous polycystic ovaries that automatically gives you a diagnosis of PCOS, because you have persons with polycystic ovaries who are ovulating. You can set your clock on their cycle. It is so regular. As soon as they're ready to get pregnant, they get pregnant without any problem. They do not have any of the physical appearance of somebody with PCOS. So they have polycystic ovaries, but not polycystic ovarian syndrome. Very, very important distinction. Okay? All right. So going back now to infertility. Yes, for persons with PCOS, infertility can be an issue. The main or the starting point of managing that is the regularizations of the periods. Because what we find, the percentage of persons, once you get the periods regularized, they will begin on their own to ovulate and can go on to have a normal pregnancy. So that's always the starting point. That's always where the discussions should go. Obviously, we have, with the drugs that we use, reasonable success in certain persons, and some persons really don't need anything more than that. Others, we need to go to a step further, where we need to stimulate the ovaries. And again, there are different medications from that, that we can use for that particular issue. The step up from that is then what we know would be moving into formal in vitro fertilization programs. And again, IVF, you have different programs under the umbrella of IVF, and there are various things that they can do in terms of getting somebody who is unable to conceive naturally with the aid of modern science, to achieve that. So that's kind of the stepwise process that you would go in terms of achieving fertility. Now, we're kind of going into a little bit of treatment, but I don't want anybody to think that the main or the only approach or management modality for PCOS is a medication. The first thing is an acceptance and an understanding of the condition. That yes, I have PCOS. It doesn't make me any less special. It doesn't make me any less of a woman. It doesn't make me any different. It doesn't make me any less. There has to be an acceptance of the condition. Two, there also has to be an acceptance that we do not usually refer to cure for PCOS so much as management of PCOS. And the reality is that if it's managed properly, in most cases, we can get our desired endpoint. And usually the desired endpoint is regularization of the periods, a decrease of the excessive male hormone effect, and of course fertility, as may be the case for some persons. The next step, you realize I've not gotten to medications at all yet. The next step is lifestyle modification. As much as possible, weight management has to be approached. Now, I've been in this for long enough to know this is much simpler said than done. And we had a little biology lesson where we spoke about the insulin resistance and how that itself leads to obesity, and the obesity then leads to more insulin resistance. So it can be an extremely difficult cycle to break. And I have to agree with you, Jael, in terms of your opening comments. We need to be kinder as a society. I unfortunately have to spend too much time in my office counseling patients because they've been made to feel less, because they are overweight, because they have hair growing on their face, and more so because they cannot get pregnant. We are much too unkind as a society, and really and truly, you said it properly, people need to mind their business because some people carry in heavy burden, loads and loads and loads of pain, and we only add into it when we are very unkind, we are very uncouth, and we say things that really just bring more hurt and distress, to persons. So that's just on this side, but it needs to be said in the context of PCOS and our community support of persons with PCOS and with other medical conditions that they cannot control. Remember, it's not because the people are greedy that they are fat. Okay, a lot of times it is totally beyond their control. So, having said that, though, an effort has to be made in terms of weight management. And obviously, we go back to the two basic things, which is physical activity and not diet, but healthy eating. Always healthy eating. Now, the important thing about the physical activity and the healthy eating is that it will have additional beneficial effects, because what we see, and we've not mentioned yet, in patients with PCOS, they are at risk for increased levels of fats in the blood, cholesterol, triglycerides, and of course that can then lead things like high blood pressure. And so with the exercising, the increased physical activity with proper eating, it helps to manage that aspect. There is also with PCOS, we've spoken about insulin resistance, and obviously the next step to that is the development of diabetes. And because we know that is again, PCOS is a risk factor for diabetes, the healthy eating, the exercise will also assist with that. So it's not just to lose weight, it's to prevent the heart attack and the stroke and the high cholesterol and the high blood pressure, which may develop, down the line. So that's in terms of lifestyle changes. And then, yes, we have medication. Medications would be used, one, to help regulate the periods. And for persons who are not necessarily interested in getting pregnant at that particular time or at all, the contraceptive pill, the basic oral contraceptive pills, is usually a good starting point, especially if there are no other contraindications or risks to taking the pill. We can use just basic progesterone tablets, and everybody would know progesterone is the second of the important female hormones. And we can use that to help to regularize the period. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, just using progesterone is enough to get the patient to start ovulating. We said about a further stimulation of the ovaries, especially if we're able to establish some kind of regularity of the period. And I'm sure persons would have heard of things like clomiphene, and that is essentially ovary stimulating drug. There's an important drug that has been around for a while called metformin. It's actually got its initial use to treat diabetes. Because of the insulin dependent, which is really, sorry, the insulin resistance, which is really the kind of forerunner to diabetes, metformin has been found to be extremely useful in managing PCOS. It helps the insulin resistance itself. It manages blood glucose, so it kind of helps to prevent the onset of diabetes, or if the blood sugars have already started to become high, that it will help to lower them. It also helps importantly with weight loss. And there are some persons who've been able to achieve quite good weight loss just using metformin. And then we've also found that the combination of managing the insulin dependence, helping with the weight loss, again, can sometimes result in spontaneous ovulation. Okay, so that's an important drug. Again, we have higher level drugs, different types of hormone preparations, that if those initial drugs do not work, especially if there are issues of infertility, that we can move into. But I mean, I'm just putting that out there. That's a more detailed conversation, you know, that you would have to kind of then at that point tailor treatment to the, you know, to the particular patient. Okay?
Right.
That's a bit of a mouthful, but I hope that.
I'm happy. In what you said, you mentioned some of the risk factors. PCOS, the risk factor. PCOS has been a risk factor to some other conditions, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, etc. And you mentioned management. And I really hope that our listeners, particularly those maybe who know someone with the condition or they themselves have it, really paid attention to your detailed explanation of management. Because another thing that I noticed, and when you spoke about management and people achieving maybe their endpoint, for some people the endpoint is having a child. And then once they are successful in having that child, and I have seen it in my support group, there's drop out, like the condition no longer matters and the endpoint is having the child, but kind of forgetting that the condition does predispose to other things. And I see a lot of people, honestly, they come and they say, oh, I had a baby and I just stopped. They just stop being interested. Like PCOS has been resolved once the baby has been born. So I'm happy you spoke about the other things that we have to think about in addition to the fertility, because it seems to me for a lot of people, the fertility is the be all and all, and then that's it. So I was really happy for that explanation.
Yes, I'm happy that you're emphasizing or re-emphasizing the point, because PCOS will not kill you, but you know, the hypertension and the diabetes, if it's not managed, can. And actually, my patients with PCOS, as part of their routine annuals, we always ensure that their lipid, their cholesterol, triglyceride levels are checked. We check their sugar to make sure that it is not going up. Now, another one that also needs to be mentioned, because it is important and it can kill you, is that PCOS, now please everybody note, it is a very small risk, but there is an increased risk of endometrial cancer with PCOS. And endometrial cancer is cancer of the lining of the womb. And what happens is when you don't have a period for months and months on end, you have excessive thickening of the lining, and after a while, those cells can start to undergo abnormal change. So it is important. I know some people come to me with PCOS and they're actually not unhappy that they're not having periods, you know. I mean, I know periods can be a bit of a bother and a stress, but they're there for a reason. And they should be coming with some degree of regularity. And yes, we obviously must manage, as we said, things like the CNCDs that potentially can arise, or the NCDs that can arise from PCOS, but also know that women need to menstruate, because that's one of the ways that you protect yourself from developing endometrial cancer.
Dr. Ryan, while let Jael step in, thank you so much. Our time is
Done.
yes, our time is done. But that last point about the necessity of menstruation, I will tell everybody. I'm very open in discussing PCOS. I'm wearing my little PCOS awareness ribbon. I will tell everybody Dr. Bly is the person that allowed me to understand the importance of menstruation, because I was one of those that felt, hey, I was privileged because menstruation was not happening. So I really appreciate the education for our listeners. The menstruation is not to be people feel sometimes you're lucky if you're not getting a period. Not really. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that that at the end there. Yes, Jael.
Yes.
Sorry, just let me intervene 1 second. I see somebody was asking about the hair growth, facial hair growth, and how you deal with that. That is always another important thing, because obviously as women, you brought up as little girls, beards are for men, and women are supposed to have nice, smooth, beautiful faces. And it can be a very distressing thing. Now, I also want to point out that especially as Black persons, we have almost a genetic kind of leaning towards hair growth, facial hair growth that has nothing to do with PCOS. So just everybody know that. So it's not because that you have a little bit of facial hair growth that necessarily means that you have PCOS. However, yes, it is associated. Now, it can be an extremely difficult problem to treat. Some persons on the contraceptive pill notice some improvement because some of the preparations will actually help to decrease the testosterone production, and so there's a little bit less hair growth. There is a drug called spironolactone, which probably more commonly used in things like hypotension, and it can block the effect of the testosterone on the skin. So that is another option. But again, you have side effects to all of those medications. And it is not, there's no magic pill, that you take the tablet and automatically everything goes. There are some other preparations that actually slow the rate of hair growth. So it is still there, but the hair is not as dark, as thick, or as apparent as if you were not using the preparations. And then there's electrolysis. Now, again, electrolysis is not a one-stop process. It's an ongoing, continuous process where essentially the hair root, the hair follicles are tapped with a little bit of electricity, and eventually they are killed and destroyed, and so they will no longer produce any hair. But remember, we have millions of hair roots on our face. So while you may destroy one, next door to it, there are many, many others. And what eventually is achieved with electrolysis is that you have some lessening, and also the type of hair that grows back, or well, not grows back, but continues to show up, is softer, I guess, a little more female in appearance than the typical more male, dark, crisp, hair, that we would see, if otherwise left untreated. But again, it is not an easy condition to treat. It can be very distressing, and we cannot talk about Sweetism and again not mention self-love. Having a little bit of hair on your face doesn't make you any less of a woman, okay? It doesn't make you any less pretty. It doesn't take away who you are. And I know that we have to accept sometimes, while we continue to work about certain things about ourselves, certain things we want to improve, we want to make better. First and foremost, we simply must just accept ourselves and love ourselves as we are. That's what God has blessed us with. We embrace it, we embrace ourselves. Yes, we continue to work towards improvement. But I see sometimes a lot of self-hate, and it hurts me. I don't think that's what we were created for. And it's just something, again, I want to draw some awareness to. And we have responsibilities as a community to support each other. Before you tell somebody that they are fat today, Tell them you like how their hair looks. Tell them they wearing a pretty dress, or you want that lipstick. Do those things instead of breaking down people.
Amen.
And
Amen.
amazing. I mean, when I saw the facial treatment, I was going to actually suggest electrolysis because I am trained in electrolysis. I am a medical esthetician as well. So I was going to actually suggest that, and I'm glad that you brought it up. I actually considered doing it in Dominica, but it would cost a lot of money if I had to do it because it's not a cheap procedure, and you would have to have a few treatments, at least 8 to 10.
That's correct. Yes, right.
Results that you're looking for. So that is probably a business idea that somebody might want to take on because I don't think I have the patience or the energy to take it on. But thank you very much, Dr. Blanc. One of the things I want to possibly throw out there, Dr. Blanc, is it possible for us to have you at least once a month? Because I feel like your delivery is amazing. You speak to the heart and not just to the mind. And I feel like a lot of women would benefit from this discussion. A lot of women are scared to come in and ask a lot of women, but they'll privately message both Trudy and myself and ask the questions. Or they'll feel like, oh, there are other women just like me going through this particular situation, and they feel more comfortable asking the questions on the live. So she dropped off for a second. She jumped up there. But we're hoping that we can actually, have Dr. Blanc on with us again. I mean, it was an excellent program, right, Trudy?
Yes, definitely. I mean, Dr. Blanc is an extremely busy woman, but if she can come back, we would always appreciate her return. And so many people are coming on. I encourage everybody who didn't get the full show, because you maybe came on a bit late, to rewatch the show, share the show with friends and family who maybe really need to learn a bit about PCOS and women's health issues in general. So it's the end of our time. Past the end of our time, as per usual.
It's a wrap. I'm still here.
Yes.
Trudy's like, bye, Michelle.
I was about to wrap it up. So guys, this month is PCOS Awareness Month. We have a Facebook page that you could check out, Dominica PCOS Association, and on Instagram, Dominica PCOS Association on Instagram as well. We'll be spreading information, sharing information, creating awareness about PCOS. So make sure to check that out.
And all right. Dr. Blanc on again. We're gonna work really hard to get her on. I know she probably got internet. I was literally fingers and toes crossed because I was worried that we'd get disconnected at some point because that always seems to happen when we connect people in Dominica. So I'm hoping that we continue and the show continues. And in as much as we lost her at the end, I'm glad that she was able to get all the information out there. And for those people who did not get your questions answered, we apologize, but we promise that we'll try and have her come back on another time so that we can have a discussion, especially where infertility is concerned, and even menstrual periods and all of that, and the peel and all the different things that go along with that. We have a lot of pregnant issues, right? And we can bring that to you right here on a Woman2Woman show. If you missed the show at the start, it's okay. You can go back and watch it from the start. The show will be here for you until Jesus comes.
Right. So thank you again, Dr. Blanc. I know maybe people are listening. I will thank you personally. And guys, we'll be back tomorrow. As usual, Woman2Woman will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. Make sure you tune in. We'll have another great show planned for you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.
Do you have a question for us on Woman2Woman? Send in your questions on 767-245-0514 or email us at w2w.vibesradio@gmail.com. Tune in Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to the Champion Station with Jael Joseph and Trudy Christian, only on Vibes Radio.